Billy McKim,
Hello.
lovely meeting you, and you've got such a very, very interesting career, background, experience. I'd prefer if you would start by telling me a bit about yourself.
Okay, thank you. I kind of split my week between two things. I spend part of my week working as a psychologist, helping people with a whole range of things to do with their emotions and how they're living their lives. And then the other part of my working week I spent in politics last May. May 19, I was elected as an independent councillor to Arden North Down Borough Council. So I split my week between both of those things.
So, a very, very fascinating combination, because most people we think of when people are getting into politics, it's journalists or lawyers or people like that. But you're a psychologist?
Yes.
So first, forgive me, but what is a psychologist?
Okay. Well, a psychologist, I suppose, let's look at it in contrast. A psychiatrist, someone who's medically trained, is a qualified doctor. They will give you support for your mental health and your stress or your depression through maybe some medication. Whereas the psychologist is more interested in looking at the background to that. So what created those beliefs? What created those fears? And can we, by understanding where they came from, dismantle them or reshape them in some way? So it's looking more at the story of who we are as individuals and also who the story we are collectively.
Now, that's a very interesting if it's applied to politics.
Yes.
So what is the psychology of politics?
Well, that's interesting. When I came to politics, I had never been in a political party. I was not interested in joining a political party. I was not interested in that politics that we all see in the 6 o'clock news about who's more right and wrong. There was nothing further for my interest. But what I really was interested in was how we live well, how I have the opportunities to live well, what kind of society or environment would help me or others live well. And that's what drew me into politics. So I see them as more the same than they are different.
Now, there would be a lot of people would say they went into politics to change things for the better. But I think that they maybe are talking about things on the outside, like roads or all sorts of different things. But you're talking about things on the inside, is that right?
And yes, we can look at what goes on internally, our emotions, our thoughts, our beliefs. We can look at our behaviours, the things that we do, the things that other people do, but they're not at all disconnected. And so what really drew me to politics was that maybe that the emphasis could change. If you look at the word politics itself and you ask what it means, do you know what? It has nothing to do with politicians. It's actually to do with the affairs of the city or the town. It's the things that involve our everyday lives and living well. That's actually what politics really is at its core.
But you're stepping outside of that. You're talking about. Now, let's look at this in the context of where we are.
Yeah.
Now, of course, this is North Down. This is Bangor Newton Ards, but we are in Northern Ireland, where the psychology of politics has been the major driver in our troubles. Would I be right in saying that?
Absolutely, and as I say to you, when I came to politics, I had no experience of politics. So you can imagine, Jane, the first time I'm sitting in a chamber and they're talking about the notices of motion and they're talking about these various terminologies that I'd never heard of. I thought to myself, well, how do I do politics then? And I thought, well, why don't I do politics the way that I do psychology? And I had the fortunate opportunity a number of years ago to learn systemic family therapy from a wonderful lady. And she taught me how we do psychology together, how that we might be struggling with something and how it influences somebody else, how somebody else's perception might influence something else. And I thought to myself, what if I saw this chamber and the wider society and the wider Northern Ireland as a bit like really big family therapy? And you know what? It really helped me understand it and find my place in politics.
But has it helped your I was going to say opponents or your colleagues or whatever you want to call it. Has it helped them understand? Are you helping them to understand this too?
Well, what it happens is actually, what it helps is the relationship that we have with each other. Because if you look at the principles of systemic therapy or family therapy, one of them actually says just that, Jane. It says that one of the things that we can use to create positive change is better relationships. So when I came to the chamber, I kind of looked around and I looked at different political parties that I was familiar with. Some of them, to be very honest, couldn't be further from my own worldview. And I realised that I could find myself, like the other political parties, in conflict with them. You know, pointing out what when they were wrong, wagging fingers at them, condemning them. Or I could work towards understanding their heritage, understanding their position, understanding what really troubled them. And if I could do that, I could build better relationships. And in building better relationships, we build better systems in which we can live well.
That is all very well. And of course, empathy and consideration and consensus and all those right ways of doing things. It's very, very hard when you're faced with someone who exactly wags a finger and says, yeah, boo, and but, and what about, and all of this stuff that has been the dialogue of the Northern Ireland political sphere for so long. You know, can you change that?
Well, again, looking at the comparison, imagine being in a relationship, Jane, with someone who over the years you've gotten to be unhappy with, but you're not sure why. You're not sure why you feel what you feel anymore, but you know you don't particularly like each other any longer. How do you begin to resolve that? And one of the things that you begin to do in the systemic approach, which I actually do think works in our politics, is you begin to listen differently. So coming together, if you can learn to listen differently, not to find out and listen and pay attention to their faults and the little trigger points and the things that they're going to say that are going to get you wound up, but you actually say, for example, I want to understand your position. So in politics, I want to understand the heritage that comes with being unionist. I want to understand the heritage that comes with being a Republican or a nationalist. I want to try to find out what you're really saying, which is sometimes really different to what you're really hearing. And so if I can get into the chamber and I can find out why you're saying it and how you're saying it, then I can begin to appreciate you. And if I can look for things that we've got common ground on, it might be, and I'm sitting across the chamber from someone and I can see that they're utterly passionate about the position that they have, utterly passionate that it represents a segment or a section of our community, then the first thing I can notice is that we've got something in common. We actually want to serve people.
That's a very, very interesting point you make. And obviously there are people who have suffered as a result of the troubles here, that whose anger comes, or bitterness or extremism or sadness or whatever you want to call it, comes from a place where they were. And you're saying find out more about that place before you judge. Can I just say that, and I'm coming close to the end of this, but can I just say, is this like the old-fashioned, was it the Native American Indians who said, you know, just walk in somebody else's shoes? Is that what you're saying?
Acknowledge that whether you are in the executive office, Stormont, or in the chamber in your local council, you too bring your own issues. You bring the things that have hurt you, the things that have shaped you. And maybe for politics, the message to the politicians today is check in with yourself and ask, are you being led by your own emotions or the needs of your community?
And you would say the needs of the community come first.
Absolutely, Jane. You know, we're here to serve. We're not here to serve ourselves. And as we started off saying, politics isn't actually about the politicians. It's about the affairs of the town or the city. It's about our well-being and how we live, which is also psychology.
Ray McKim, it was an absolute pleasure to discuss the psychology of politics with you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.